Webhooks are a way web applications communicate with each other. They allow you to send real-time data from one application to another whenever a given event occurs. Incredibly useful, the Webhook Action is one of the most common ways to get data into Tines. For example, you can use this action to immediately receive alerts from your SIM tools when a user updates a Jira ticket or if someone posts a message in Slack. Webhook actions are used at the beginning of a story as a means of receiving information in Tines in order to automate a context-appropriate response. In most cases, you won't need to configure the Webhook action. Instead, you'll need to tell your source tool that it should send webhooks to Tines. To do this, simply drag and drop a webhook action onto your storyboard. Rename the action so you can easily identify what part of your workflow it's responsible for. Every webhook action has a unique URL at which it can receive data through webhooks. A webhook's URL can be found in the Summaries tab at the top of the Properties panel. Copy this unique URL and paste it into the appropriate field in your source tool. The secret field contains a randomly generated secret code that will be part of the webhook URL and provides an extra layer of security. There are also some advanced configuration options available which might be necessary to interact with some tools in your stack. Verbs is an optional field that can be used to specify which HTTP methods should be accepted by the webhook. By default, GET and POST methods are permitted. Response code is an optional field that can be used to set the HTTP response code that the Tines webhook should respond with when it receives an event. By default, this will be 201. Response is an optional field used to set the response that should be returned to the sending system. By default, this is OK. This field can be nested JSON objects or just plain text. Response headers is another optional field used to add any parameters to the headers that will be returned to the sending system. This field should contain one or more nested JSON objects. When the action receives a webhook, it will emit it as a standard Tines event. You can use any HTTP client to test this. For example, I'm going to use a curl request. Outside of receiving webhooks from external tools, webhook actions have two other important functions in Tines: receiving form submissions and acting as entry points for sub-stories. But we'll talk about these uses in dedicated modules.